I'm Erik Morgansen. This is my shot breakdown.
In this video we're going to talk about some techniques for animating really huge creatures, and we'll take a look at a sequence of shots from the movie Pacific Rim. There's something fundamentally wrong with all this animation, and if I've done a halfway decent job animating these shots, hopefully you don't notice what it is. The answer is that for the scale of these characters, everything is moving way too fast. I'll take a step back. So when Guillermo del Toro came to pitch this movie to us and talk about his vision for what it should look like, his concept was that these should look like giant 100-foot tall robots and monsters fighting each other, and he really wanted to sell that massive scale. So it needed to look like skyscrapers moving around through space. So as animators, we were all really excited about that. That sounded amazing. And step one was, let's find some reference for what that might look like, because obviously skyscrapers don't move around. So we need to find some frame of reference for how we're going to deal with the scale of these characters. And that led us to this. So this is a video of a demolition of a giant smokestack from an old factory. And judging from this building that's right next to it, it looks like that's about 2 stories tall. So if we rough this out, it looks like this tower is almost 100 feet tall. So that's great. That's what we're looking for. And then if we look at the timing of this, we can see that on frame 12, it starts to fall. And there it is falling. And it hits the ground at frame 141. So that is 129 frames to fall. And if you divide it by 24 frames, you get about just over 5 seconds for this thing to fall down. So that's cool. That looks great. It'd be amazing to see a robot falling and landing on the ground with this kind of weight and impact. So that's our frame of reference. So we've got a reference, and that's all well and good, but we're starting to see the beginnings of a problem. And that problem is that if you look at the overall footage of the creatures on screen, it's about 24 minutes in the final movie. If you use this timing that we have here, that number would be closer to 1 hour and 20 minutes, which would put the runtime of the movie around 4 hours long. Probably studio executives are not going to be too excited about a 4-hour long runtime. That's one problem. There's another problem that's an even bigger one. So we look at this footage of someone who's human scale getting knocked to the ground. Looks something like this. Our timing is going to end up being, starting at frame 15, we see the contact happen, and then hitting the ground happens about frame 35. So we've got about 20 frames, which is just under a second. So here's some very rough animation of that same timing of 20 frames to fall to the ground. So this is the timing relative to that smokestack demolition that we saw earlier. So this is 129 frames for this character to fall to the ground. And while it's not absurd to think that we would do things at this speed, it looks like it's going to make it really difficult to make these fight sequences between these creatures look very dynamic or very interesting. So the way that we dealt with this issue was to create a rationale that said, when any of these characters are getting up to speed, we'll move them much more slowly. But when they start speeding up, and when they get close to like a contact for a punch, or like this Jaeger getting thrown into a building and smashed into it like this, we're going to use human scale. So you can see, like in this moment here, this pulling out and then the opening of the hand, it's slower than human scale. And then in through here, it's nice and slow. But then when this contact happens, that's about what you'd expect for a head bouncing back if it got pushed into something hard like this. And then again, we took another moment and focus on this hand and let it drag slowly across the screen like this. And so what I'm doing here is slowing the timing down of this monster pulling the Jaeger around this way to feature that hand going across the screen like this. And then we let it hang in space here. And then once this energy of this guy has ratcheted up a bit, then we're going to speed back up to quicker timing, which is a little bit hidden by this camera pan, which is helpful. and then pushing into the building. Once we get close to the contact of the building, then again, we're going to get back into just about human scale. I have delayed some things and softened some things and slowed some things down with the way that the overlap on these legs work, and maybe a little bit on the overlap of this arm here as it compresses down. But again, it looks like that's about what you'd expect for the scale of a creature that's human size. And then the walk through here. And then when you get to here, same kind of thing. Like again, part of this is obscured by this character breaking through the building. But if you notice, when we get to this moment of contact with the ground that happens right here, the bounce up the other direction, and if we look at this light coming off of his head, this bounce that happens in that light, that is the follow through of that contact again, and then the bounce up back the other way. Again, that feels like it's about human scale. Bounce this way and then back up like that. So the impact of this now is much more quick. Same thing here on this impact, where it feels slower going through the building. But if you look at that light on the top of his helmet coming through, again, it's only about 12 frames to get to the ground, so it's closer to the scale of those of that boxer falling to the mat. And then again, after that energy is dissipated, in this next section where this Jaeger's kind of getting ready to stand up, I just lag the amount of time that it takes him to stand up. This leg comes over, swings over again quicker certainly than the scaling of that giant tower. It's a little bit slowed down, but then once we get to here, I add that rocking back and forth of that bouncing. This leg makes contact first, which causes the hip to rock up this way, and then after the other leg makes contact here, then this hip is going to swing over and rock back the other way. So I take that moment of the follow through and make a larger residual action to it and make it take a little bit longer, and then just delay him standing up. I let him hang down there like it's taking him a while to get his energy up to stand back up. And then the next thing to sell the weight is just to amplify all of the drag and overlapping action and residual motion that happens after these big contacts. So if you look at this light here that's coming off of the helmet in relationship to this orange light here that's on the chest, you can see like here I've got this head pointing way off this way and the chest pointing this direction, so I'm really rotating them against each other. And then I'm adding some extra bounce in through here on the chest, right in there, and then in through here you can see how much I'm twisting hip and chest against one another like this, and then adding more twist like this through here. This big swing across of the hips is exaggerated, and you can feel all of that snakiness through the spine. Same thing on this monster character. I'm leading with the top of the head through here, and then again this way, and I'm really leaning into it. And then on this head shake, I've got like some extra drag that happens in through there to give it some more. And same thing on this jaw. I'm really pulling the jaw over on this head swing. Like that. It's really broken in through here, and then there's more follow through, and then it releases again and has more drag this way as the head goes. So this is something of a special case scenario with regard to trying to make something look big and heavy. We came up with a rationale of speeding things up where we're in the forceful part of the action all the way down to like human scale, and then expanding that scale back out after that event happens, some contact or some percussive event. But as long as we kept with enough drag, enough follow through, and then made sure that the energy didn't dissipate too quickly after those contacts happened, and we still felt plenty of reverberation through the body, then those things still read as a large character, and that's the kind of thing you could apply in all kinds of situations. That's my shot breakdown. Thanks for watching.